Hey, and welcome back to the Elite Transformations podcast. I am Rich, and this is Lottie. We are your hosts. So, thanks for coming back to another episode. The plan today is we're talking about calories. Again, our episodes are going to be short, brief, snappy, to the point. We want to fill them with as much information as possible. So, plan today, talk about calories. So, we're going to go dive straight in there and talk about or create a definition or explain the definition of what a calorie is. So a calorie is a unit of energy. We can measure it. It's something like a centimetre, a millimetre. It's just a unit of energy. The actual definition of a calorie is the amount of energy required to heat 1 gram of water by 1 degree. Now that doesn't really mean much to any of us at all, but that's the definition of it. What you and I will know calories as is the amount of energy which is consumed from food and drink. So that's really all you need to know. Foods and drinks contain calories, and it's the body can convert those calories into usable energy which can support life and extra functions in the body, an energetic response, because we're very energetic beings. We need a certain amount of calories to remain alive and to keep muscles working, to keep organs working. So that's what we're going to dive into. So the definition of a calorie is pretty boring, and you don't really need to know about it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, end of podcast.
Well
See you
done.
next week.
See you next week. Thanks for
But
coming.
turns out calories are actually quite important, and calories are a very, very misunderstood area when it comes to fitness, dieting, anything health related.
Yes. I think probably all of us are most familiar with calorie counting as a way of dieting or a way of understanding what our calories are. And I think it's really beneficial to talk about kind of the misconceptions of calorie counting and what that entails and the why. And again, when you're looking from my point of view from as a psychotherapist, and you've got people with distorted eating, and when that goes to that really extreme point where calorie counting becomes very obsessive, and then obviously back
Overwhelming, totally consuming, controlling, isn't
debilitating. And so what we're looking at again is to try and, being mindful of that, but also bringing it back into a balanced, and again, just understanding that we can have an awareness around calories, but it doesn't have to sort of take over our life. And at Elite Transformations, that's what we really aspire to hammer home, I suppose, is that it's a lifestyle thing. It's just having an awareness and education around calories rather than it being something that is a necessity to follow, I feel.
Yeah, 100%. I think
What do you think's the...
I was going to say, I think if we take it back a step and explain energy balance.
Okay.
So energy balance, this will lay the foundation to different dietary strategies and dietary approaches, and just the understanding of how humans and energetic beings, your animals too, your pets, your dog, we actually use the dog as a very crude example. But let's take it back to energy balance. So I do this a lot with my hands, which everyone that works with me understands my hands are always doing something. So you guys watching on YouTube, watch my hands go crazy. You guys listening on the podcast platform, check out the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So you can see
because I'm doing bits with my hands, and I'm quite a visual guy. So on the left-hand side, we have calorie in. So my left hand is going up and down for those of you listening. So we have this marker of calories, or we have a calorie amount. So this is a unit of energy. And again, let's keep things simple. Let's use nice numbers. So let's just say
easy numbers.
Let's just say I consume 2,000 calories in a day. My hand is in the middle. Now, if I was to expend, which we all do expend energy, and we measure that again in a calorie amount because it's nice and simple. So if I consume 2,000 calories and I expend 2,000 calories in a day, that's a matched amount. It's equal. Mm-hmm. So therefore, I haven't gained any calories and I haven't lost any calories. So that is what we call maintenance calories. It's equal. It's homeostasis. It means the body is balanced. what we can do often, we can, if we're looking to decrease someone's body fat levels or decrease someone's body weight, what we're going to have to do, which this is fact, this is where a lot of misconceptions take place, and lots of people don't understand or fully believe in calories, excuse me, which not believing in calories is like not believing in gravity. It's
You can, it's measurable.
It's a measurable unit of energy, and calories do exist. I'm sorry to break it to you or those who don't believe it, but it is. We'll explain more in a minute. But if we're trying to reduce someone's body weight or body fat, we're going to have to bring the calorie amount lower than the expenditure amount. So therefore, we have this loss. We have this deficit. So when calories are brought down, so let's just say 1,500 calories in, 2,000 calories out, we have created this 500 calorie deficit, where the body will then go to find calories is from within itself, because we store calories as body fat and other forms of tissue such as muscle mass as well. But we're going to be creating a 500 calorie deficit. The body has to use and dig into its own stores to bridge that gap, because we've spent more than we've earned, essentially. Now, very simply, the bigger that deficit, so if we take it to 1,000 calories in and 2,000 calories out, that gap has increased, so our body still has to dig in more to our own reserves to bridge that gap again. So we're, at the end of the day, net loss 1,000 calories. We've spent more than we've earned. That is the way in which we reduce body fat and or reduce body weight. Now I keep kind of flicking between the two because you can do one without the other. We won't get into that though. If energy in was greater than energy out, so we've consumed more than we've expended, we're going to have this excess left over. Now the body is fantastic at storing excess calories within the body, most often as body fat.
Just in case.
Just in case of famine, like our bodies are incredibly efficient at storing energy as body fat, because it's only in recent few hundred years or so for human race that we've had this constant abundance of food, and we can consume a few thousand calories by walking 2 minutes down the road to the petrol station or going into the fridge. It's very easy to consume calories. So what we need to understand is energy in versus energy out is what we call energy balance. The amount of in and out, and which is greater, which is lower, is going to influence or be the controlling factor of our body weight. That is the science of how we lose, maintain, or gain weight.
Yeah.
Now, putting, like I said, we'd use a dog as a very crude example. If you had an overweight dog, you'd give it 1 scoop less of food, so you'd reduce its calories, and you might give it another half an hour walk a day, or just whatever the walk is, you'd increase it a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you might take it around the block one more time. So what we've done is we've brought the calorie amount down, mm-hmm. and we've increased the energy expenditure, the calorie expenditure, to create this deficit. So
therefore, he
dog
has to use
will use his own reserves to make the gap, because we're pushing energy expenditure up and we're bringing energy intake down.
Yeah.
This is where lots of people get confused and they say calorie counting doesn't work. Calories are rubbish. I've tried calorie counting, it didn't work for me. Calorie counting isn't a 100% accurate way of determining intake or expenditure, because we're completely energetic beings and we don't consume, like, our day of expenditure is constantly different. What you did yesterday compared to what you did today, we're going to expend a slightly different amount. I mean, it might be, if you did the exact same thing compared to today, you still might have a few hundred calorie different, because energy in the body, just moving my hand like this, like those of you on YouTube will see I'm constantly waving my hands around. In order to move my hands, my muscles have to have fuel, calories, in order to move. So just you moving a little bit more in a different way yesterday compared to today the calorie amount, the expenditure amount will be slightly different. Of course, if you stayed in bed and you were sick one day versus you went for a 5-hour walk the next day, obviously very different activity levels, so very different energy expenditure. Same thing goes with food. You might eat the same sort of food, but you might just eat a little bit more, a little bit less. So it is very difficult to establish a very perfect or accurate amount on either the intake or the expenditure.
Yeah, so similarly, 5 days a week you might eat the same food, and then on the weekends your diet might change due to socializing or things like that. So it's understanding those different variants as well, I think, are important.
So recapping, energy balance, calories, intake versus output, calories in versus calories out. Very, very simple way of explaining it, but it's a math equation essentially. So the only way someone would gain weight is by being in a surplus.
In a surplus over calories.
The only way somebody would ever reduce their body fat levels or their body weight would be in a deficit. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a deficit. If you are gaining weight, you will be in a surplus. That's simple facts. So then how do we, if calorie counting isn't the most accurate way of doing it, and there are definitely some downsides to calorie counting, like you've already mentioned. For certain people, it can be too controlling, overwhelming, restrictive, yeah. And you go down the more extreme end, it can be, yeah, like you said, debilitating. So we can do there are different methods of altering calorie intake or energy expenditure as well in order to elicit a different
result.
Or in order to elicit the same result but a different approach.
Yeah.
So we can dress this up in multiple different ways depending upon the behaviour, the preferences and the personality of a person, which is what we do with our clients. And it's definitely it's a teamwork thing. Like our clients understand themselves the best out of anyone, and we have the expertise, and we're working to collaborate the best approach for them, don't we?
Yeah, we absolutely do.
So there are a few different ways which we could dress up a diet rather than calorie counting. So we have tracking approaches.
Creating a deficit, maybe not a diet. I think creating a deficit's kind of
better
language. Like, so we're not on a, I think that's a more helpful language, is looking at creating that deficit.
I mean, diet has a bad rep
Connotation,
anyway.
yeah, exactly. So, and
whenever you say diet, everyone's like,
ooh, lettuce forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've got to eat, lettuce
Rabbit food.
When you say diet, it's restrictive, and all diets fail at some point, which they don't. A diet really is just dressing up, or is just explaining someone's continuous food consumption behaviours.
Yeah.
What they would eat in a day or a week or so. But yeah, okay, all right, creating a deficit.
Yeah.
So we're talking about bringing body fat, body weight down then. So we can approach that in a different way other than calorie counting by bringing calories down and energy expenditure up to create the deficit. So we have tracking approaches. So calorie counting is where you track everything that goes in your mouth, whether you eat it, you drink it, you track everything. Now if you do this, doing it for 3 days in a week is ample. Maybe one on a day where you don't exercise, probably a Monday, because Monday's behaviours are often different to Friday's behaviours.
True.
You'd probably want to do it on a day which you exercise, because exercising can alter your desires.
Your hunger cues.
Up or down. Some people have a response to exercise where they eat more. Some people's response to exercise is they eat less. So that's a good day to track. A weekend, because most people, us included,
A little more flexible.
a little bit more flexible.
Times are different. Like, you're not on a structure, are you, so much or so frequently? You're kind of a much more relaxed time frame structure. So I think that, again, can alter types of food availability, everyone, again.
How we socialise, you and I socialise more on the weekends, even if it's just with each other.
Yeah.
And we get pleasure from eating food. Food tastes great. It makes us feel pleasure in our heads. So it's like, nice. Croissants more on the weekend than on a Monday. Which I think, yeah, we'll come back to that another day. Like actually the pleasure of food and the importance of pleasure in food.
Yeah, connection.
But perhaps a Monday, perhaps a day where you train, perhaps a weekend day because it's very different. And then females who menstruate in the latter part of your cycle, that
Late luteal.
those last few days, yeah. So we have two different phases in the menstrual cycle, and so the follicular is the first half, ovulation in the middle, and then luteal, the late luteal, the very later part of the cycle before period comes. That we can see behaviour changes and appetite changes. So tracking a day there can also be a good day to track. So there's 4 days. So doing 3 or 4 will give you a very good understanding of foods or calories consumed and behaviours. So that would be the full calorie counting. Next we could go macro splits. So just tracking the macronutrients. So some people have a calorie target and then broken down into macronutrients. So proteins.
Carbs, proteins, fats.
Yeah, alcohol is a macronutrient, but that's the only one which you can
Live without.
live without optimally still. Some might argue, but you can. We don't really tend to do that, but that allows much more flexibility in someone's approach to their food.
Yeah.
And then one which we really like to go down, particularly on weekends for a lot of people, is
Protein, hitting your protein target.
tracking protein only.
Yeah, and nothing else. So not worrying about calories, not worrying about kind of the macro splits. It's just tracking, are you hitting your protein target? So if we're hitting our protein target more often than not, because protein has a high satiety level, we are less likely to then eat other things on the side. So if we're just tracking our protein, it's a really good way of keeping everything else kind of in balance without tracking the macros. So that's what we'd be looking at doing, especially on the weekend. Have you hit your protein target is generally what we would do.
Yeah, having a protein target for the weekend is a really simple, nice, easy kind of thing to follow. And once you've tracked for a little bit, you can kind of eyeball it like chicken breast, about 25 grams of protein.
2 eggs.
2 eggs, eight approximately grams of protein per egg. Cool, there's 16 there. And you can kind of tot it up in your head, or maybe keep a note on your notes, or like you could even put it into a tracking app, but just track the protein aspect of it. So yeah, there's three tracking approaches at different levels of intensity, which we can use at different points in a dieting phase if we're trying to create the deficit, and we can pop them into life at any point. Like again, Elite Transformations, we're trying to build a lifestyle and the autonomy and the capability that our clients aren't just going to be like, right, 12 weeks, summer shred.
Yeah.
I've got to do something extreme now.
Yeah. Cut everything out. Just eat lettuce.
Get the results, and then end up for another 9 months of the year falling into unhealthy, less than or suboptimal habits. It's like, no, we are trying to teach lifelong habits.
Yeah. The people that are not just surviving, they're thriving. I think that's really important. And it's something that, yes, you might dial it in slightly more if you were going on holiday or being more mindful of something, but most of the time we're looking at an accessible stack of habits that you can live by that doesn't feel like you're on a restricted diet. It's around education. On a regime. Yeah. It's around education, and and I think certainly the hit your protein goal is a really helpful way of just being mindful around that.
Studies show that the higher the protein intake of a person is, generally the lower the calorie intake is of the person to a point, because protein is so satiating. So that's why when we're trying to create a deficit, obviously the less hungry you are, that's quite helpful, because we're trying to reduce calorie intake down. So if protein is shot up, it's very satiating. So the knock-on effect later in the day is that you consume less food, less calories. Great. Perfect. That's what we're after. So protein only on the weekend, great thing to do. So then going into non-tracking approaches. So there are more than one way to skin a cat. And remember, we're just trying to dress up this energy deficit to our clients' behaviors, likes, preferences. So we don't actually have to track anything if we don't want to. So a big one is intermittent fasting. So lots of people are, I mean, it's popular right now as well.
It's really popular.
So intermittent fasting, you just pick
an eating window. So, and you eat within that time. And so again, by decreasing your eating window, you're likely to knock out a breakfast or a dinner, which could be a 400 calorie breakfast, and the eating window is shorter, which, so say you finish by 7 p.m, it also cuts out the TV snacks often that happen, or that may occur, the mindless eating that may
sweet
occur
things before bed
after 7. So that would be, again, creating a shorter eating window would be again a way of reducing or getting that calorie deficit down in a way that doesn't actually feel too dreadful, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a vague way of doing it, but there is absolutely.
But it gets results.
There's nothing wrong with vague. I mean, if you're not particular about, I mean, numbers people like to watch numbers change. Lots of other people don't like numbers, so.
Some people like to gauge how they feel in their clothes or how their body looks, and I think that, again, it's about finding what suits you as individuals. What suits you? What do you aspire to? What works for you? Numbers, not numbers. Visual, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's what, with our clients, we're looking at. Kind of, we get to know them, and then we kind of will work with them, collaborate to find the best approach that works for them. So yeah, if you've got a numbers guy that you're like, how does your clothing feel? They're like, I don't, that's not for me. But I would like to know.
I've input everything into my Excel spreadsheet, and I'm actually minus 400 calories. So today, win.
Oh, winning. Yeah, exactly. So it's just different. So, and I think that's significant to kind of highlight. Like
other people, that would repel them hugely. It's like,
I have to do maths.
Yeah. But by having these clear, like, right, I'm going to eat between 12 and I'm going to eat my last meal before 7.
7.
6, whatever it is. Think, yeah, like Lottie said, you just skip breakfast and you've skipped those evening bits. It's like the chances are you're not going to include those extra bits into your eating window because you'd have eaten to satiety there and there fairly normally, but you've just missed the top and the bottom off.
Yeah.
And also important to understand that whatever that eating window is, there's no particular like magic theory or hack or biohack, hormonal. I mean, hack is the word now, isn't it? It's the buzzword. But doesn't matter what eating window frame you have.
When you're eating
whether it's 6 hours or 7 hours or 5, doesn't matter. The idea is you've reduced calories because you've just knocked out a portion of eating either side, and you've squished your eating window down, and you haven't added in calories you've not eaten into that window. Is that really is the simplicity of it, which is great. It works well. You can do other things like 5-2. That was big a few years ago. Just eating to a maintenance level, just an ordinary amount, 5 days per week, and then having 2 days where you drop calories super low. So again, over the week, we've created a deficit in 2 days. Like, yes, you've maintained weight for 5 days, and then 2 very low days. That's where we create the deficit. If you keep consistent with that, I mean, if you keep consistent with any of them when you're creating a deficit,
it's going to have
consistency is key.
Yeah.
You can also have a low carb day. Carbohydrates, you're not going to want to live with low carbohydrates forever because you're going to be performing suboptimally. We use carbohydrates in the gym to create a powerful workout, which is really important for us. And also the brain solely runs off glucose, so carbohydrates, which the body can convert elsewhere. But
that's for another podcast.
Boring topic for another subject, another day. But carbohydrates, we can just, I mean, we all know what carbohydrates are: pastas, bread, rice, and then we have like kind of the sweeter things like pastry, confectionery, biscuits, things like that, potatoes, jelly sweets. We had some amazing Haribo the other day.
We did have some amazing Haribo the other day.
Yeah, carbohydrates. Oh, and guess what time that was? Oh, that was about 7 p.m. when we were watching TV.
So yeah, the side segue into carbohydrates generally are very easy to consume in large quantities, which is why people generally, I think, again, we look at why people have a negative association with carbs, it's often because we can overeat carbs. It's very easy to. It's very difficult to eat sort of 3 chicken breasts in a row because you feel full. But you could probably eat an entire baguette in
Yeah, I could do that
successfully fairly fast.
Yeah.
And again, the calories in those two, the chicken and the bread or the baguette is where the significance is. So you can overconsume on this, which is probably higher calorie, or it is higher calories in the baguette than it is in the chicken breast.
I mean, if you have 200 calories of a chicken breast and you have 200 calories of carbohydrate or baguette, you're going to be able to eat 200 calories of baguette very quickly and very easily, and 200 calories of chicken breast will be slower and more filling.
And you'll know you've consumed it.
That doesn't make carbohydrates a bad thing. They're just tasty. So we have the ability to consume more, which it's not the carbohydrates which is a problem, it's the amount that one person would consume, and it's in excess, it's unnecessary, and that leads to, over a long period of time, consistently overeating, leads to excess body weight. Yeah, a surplus. So we have actually rambled on for longer than expected. We were going to try to keep this to 10 minutes. I'm not sure where we're at, but it's more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, 100% more than 10
so
minutes.
To summarise, calorie is a unit of energy. It has a boring definition, but you don't really need to know it. But we find calories in our foods.
Everything, and drinks.
And our drinks.
Alcohol.
Energy balance is the factor, is the way we measure body weight, or is the energy balance of someone. When energy balance is when energy intake is greater than the output, we have a surplus. Our bodies are very good at storing energy for a rainy day. If energy input and energy output is matched, we maintain weight.
Homeostasis.
Imagine like a seesaw. Yeah. And then if energy input is lower than energy output, we create a deficit. So we have a surplus. Did I say deficit twice?
No, you've talked about surplus first.
Surplus, maintenance, deficit. Imagine it as a seesaw, like that. And then we can wrap up a diet approach to the individual, however they most think they'll get on with successfully and for a period of time. So we can have tracking approaches, or we can have non-tracking approaches. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
We rattled through that pretty quick as possible. Thank you so much for watching this episode or listening to this episode. Please like it, share it. We want to share this podcast with as many people as possible so we can help as many people as possible. Yeah. So please do comment, like, share. If you've got any questions, please let us know. But join us back for the second part of this 2-part series, where we're going to talk more about calorie expenditure. We've talked a decent amount about calorie intake, but episode 2 of the 2-part series, calorie expenditure. So tune in.
Take care.